Bienvenue à tout le monde. Welcome. We are late, but I hope you can try to speak a little your presentation. The project, funded by the Studi di Padova Foundation within the framework of the visiting program, relies on the knowledge of some years with the Algerian partners thanks to Erasmus Plus program in the areas of archaeology and architecture, in particular with the universities of Istra, but also Batna, Algeria, Constantine II, Algeria, and I hope with the Gelma and the University of Carthage, National High School of Architecture and Urbanism. The project shared aims at a better knowledge at the border area of the Roman Empire, which has around the city of Biskra, the ancient Vetera, one of its fundamental points. The exceptional descriptive and photographic documentation which the French pilot Jean Baradès left us in the middle of the last century on the Algerian LiMeS is the fundamental basis of our research, but the survey on the ground is still very promising, and we had the opportunity to verify during our stays in Biskra in 2018 and 2019. Today, a great deal of research will be briefly presented. In the morning, the Algerian colleagues will offer us an overview of the studies that they are doing on the borders and related territories, while in the afternoon, the University of Padova group of work will present some absolutely preliminary results on the different aspects of the research, done in collaboration with the Algerian partners. This is a workshop that then opens up for discussion, for comparison. This will also happen in the coming days when we will be able to compare ourselves around some work tables on particular thematic aspects based on our different knowledge and skills. In this way, our project can continue to grow and develop in a spirit of collaboration. Good job to us. And now I ask Hasdina. I think it was the first presentation of the morning. We had no problem here, but
good morning, all colleagues. My presentation will be focused on heritage atmospheres, and we will see especially how are conflicts based on them or on which are based or research about heritage atmospheres and the approaches used by both researchers and practitioners, architects. So the subject is emerging from the environmental relationships between human architecture and urbanism and the context. So architecture or traditional architecture or ancient architecture, historical architecture has or gives in the past a very good example of harmonious relationship between environment and these man-made buildings. We see in this some examples from arid and semi-arid areas, the Ores Valley in Algeria, and also the Nabatean civilization buildings in Saudi Arabia desert. We see how a man had construct his buildings in this area, even if the context was not so merciful with them. He tried to have every details in way, in a respectful way with the physical environment. But with industrialization, all this harmonious relationship has been broken. So buildings were not respectful of nature and not respectful with environment, and just little constructions, older constructions, make us remembering these harmonious environment and environmental relationships. So, in this way, traditional architecture and our heritage could be a good example to make us remembering this environmental relationship and to think about it even for preserving them or to design new buildings. In Algeria we have in all regions, in different regions, both north or southern regions, we have a lot of examples revealing us that this harmonious environmental relationship could go from the building or the urbanism scale until the use of the space. I will go to other examples. Here also are two examples of a late period, Ottoman period in Saudi Arabia, when we see that it's not so much different from the case of Algeria. And diverse architecture also gives us some examples revealing the ways that buildings catch sunlight and use it for a good way of living with this harsh environment. Inside buildings also, the succeeding spaces reveal us another way of life, taking into account this environment and its specificities. So, what we are giving to ourselves as questions, firstly, at what degree old architecture is respectful with the conditions of the circumstances of these environments, both on the design plan or aspects and way of lives. Also, what are the lessons that we can take from these buildings, historical buildings, and especially to preserve them, as well as to make references, to make them as references for contemporary design. So, the most important parameters for these environmental relationships are sun and wind. And in Algeria and other parts of the world, Roman antique cities gives a good example for buildings or cities respecting these conditions. So, what will be our vision towards these environmental relationships? Way of thinking is energetic performances of these old buildings that are living now another kind of needs, for example, heating, air conditioning, They are not the same as was the case in the past. Also, there is another kind of vision, is user's comfort. So, for example, in old buildings converted to libraries, we have not the same needs for reading and writing. So, daylighting, also view outside, is now being as an important psychological parameter to users. So, we have to think also about this. But all these visions could be inserted or integrated to another more global approach, which is atmospheres ones. So how could we reveal, or how could we study and act on what is called atmosphere? So atmospheres could give us an idea on all knowledge about it, and this could be acquired with the restitutions of environmental specificities of the place, and then we can act very carefully on these buildings. So we will give a chance to this building to be converted without defiguration and restored with fidelity, authenticity, and to be preserved without degradation. As examples of knowledge, we have a lot of means and ways to do it. So graphical presentation, simulation by computer programs, simulation also in 3D by simulation programs, by models, and also this kind of means that we can do it. So preservation with degradation, as we can see here, a mosque, an old mosque, has been restored, but all the character, the ancient character, has disappeared because the courtyard was covered. We have the old windows have been changed totally, and this gives us another atmosphere. Also, sometimes architects and the restorers' actions completely gives another atmosphere. We have here the old characters of the Algerian of the mosque, and now this converted mosque to a museum with a covered courtyard has given another atmosphere which has not the old or authentic relationship with environment. Also in this palace, covering the courtyard with yellowish materials give another colorful atmospheres which are different from the authentic ones. Also, changing windows character give another atmospheres to these buildings and their atmosphere. So what could be, what is ambience or atmosphere? So it indicates, or it gives us an idea about a milieu, so our environment, a milieu or environment who is mental and physical. Ambience or atmosphere could be also materials and mental, and we can conceptualize all these scenes that could be reinterpreted and used for contemporary design, or to replace all means, architectural means to recreate the old atmospheres, could be conceptualized in this manner. So it's composed by 4 components: the context, the physical environment, the architectural space, and the user by his behavior and perception. Ambience is changing in function of climate, society, and culture. So, cold and hot climates. In the same city, we have Christians and Muslims societies and culture, poor and rich societies. Also, it changed with the evolutions of the architectural building itself and the functions in it. Mosques and church. First, or mosques, oldest mosque in the same period, and the last mosques in the same dynasty. Here we have the example, the first Ottoman mosque and the last ones. And the user, we can, for historical buildings, try to take or to understand all the way of perceptions and behavior from old mosaics and iconography that we can find in historical sites or buildings. The most important components for the ambience, for the atmosphere, is signal. So we have physical signals that are transmitted to our mental perception by our sensorial organs. So we have the light, we have also light and vapor. So we can smell it in a Turkish bath, for example. In the kitchens, old kitchens, also we have some special signals that are transmitted to our brain by smelling. We have also textures that can be transmitted by touch. Even if we can't physically touch the surfaces, we know that it's harsh or this. So we have also light and sound, which is very specific to sacral buildings. So for heritage building, we can ask if atmospheres could constitute an heritage in itself. So some official references speak about atmospheres as immaterial cultural heritage, and we have the Convention of UNESCO 2003. We have also Declaration of ICOMOS 2005, and the one of Quebec in 2008. All these conventions and official references are speaking about different parameters that are related to atmosphere as an immaterial cultural heritage. So, as an approach, we can speak about the one used in research works. So we have to collect data to describe the situation and analyze them, and try to characterize the components of the conceptual model. So we have to define the object of the characterization, the means used to characterize them, and these all have to be undertaken from different disciplines, areas of knowledge that are not archaeology or architecture. So for the signal, we have to measure, to quantify it, and this is related to building sciences. For the context, we have to describe qualitatively and quantitatively these factors related to the context, and in general, for historical building, we have to go to literature, sociology, history, geography, and meteorology also. For the architectural space, we have to identify this component, to analyze it from the formal and functional or use point of view. And for this we have to also undertake some knowledge, some methods from morphology, sociology, psychology, especially social psychology. For the users, we have to identify and describe the perception and behavior, way of thinking and acting of the users. And here we have to make surveys or content analysis. So the fields of research are literature, sociology, and environmental psychology. However, the most important point here is that this multiple characterization and pluridisciplinary characterization of the atmosphere needs to make an interactive analysis of all these data, not all data separately to the other one. So for this we have to go to mathematics, and mathematics could, especially statistics, could give us a help for analyzing all data, the collected data, and in the same time. So statistical multiple correspondences analysis can give us such solution. We have here an example of the characterization of the sound spaces in the Medina of Tunis in the 19th and the first years of the 20th centuries. And the work was based on the urban form analysis and the travelers novels. So we make an interaction about all these, and the sound effects was characterized by specialists from the building sciences in this area. Another kind of study is about daylight and design in the Ottoman mosques of Tunisia and Algeria, and here we have in the first time make a formal characterization of the daylighting devices in the mosques, try to see the effect of daylight on the use of the space, and the multiple analysis, statistical analysis, give us some correspondences between some futures, and this allowed to define the situation in different classes and kinds. Also to give some conclusions about the way that this architecture, the Ottoman architecture in Algeria and Tunisia, gives a new way to use daylight in the mosque that are different from the previous mosques or the mosques of the previous dynasty, such as the courtyard, who was an inner courtyard in previous dynasty mosques, has been a surrounding one, the new mosque, the new Ottoman mosque in Algeria. Ambiances or atmospheres also is problematic when we are going to restore or preserve this kind of historical buildings. So we have here some examples of some archaeological sites in Tunisia, and when we visit, we can give an idea of, or I think that it's necessary to give an idea or about these atmospheres in these archaeological sites. So we have here some industrial sites that are expressed, the atmosphere that expressed in models, giving an idea, a clear idea about on-site and underground sites atmospheres of these industrial areas. Also, this place gives what we can, an idea about we can call hidden atmosphere. So when we are in this place, we can't see atmosphere, but we can easily imagine the spectacle. I don't know if it's the word in English, but the show. Yes, we have directly an idea. So even the drawings or the models can give what are an idea about what is called hidden atmosphere about this place. Another way to give us an idea about the heritage atmospheres is the reconstitutions of buildings. So here we have houses, Roman houses, that are rebuilt in Tunisia and give us really the atmospheres. We can, it allowed to I don't find the word, but to feel really the life, atmosphere life in this kind of ancient houses, even in the courtyard or inside the big room of the house. Here also is an example of what has been an atmosphere of a Roman bath in Tunisia. So we have the lights, the colors, and we can imagine also another hidden atmospheres that are the smelling or the water or the vapor that we can feel on our skins. Atmospheres could be also a way to transform in a tragic way the character of space, and this is the case of a lot of theaters, Roman theaters in the Arab world, and especially here is the theater of Carthage. So Carthage is another place where the show is not the same as it was designed before. Atmosphere could be also conserved in a very good way, and here we have a Turkish bath where the atmospheres are the same as before. Another way to make people feeling the same atmospheres is models, human models that gives us a really scene when we can imagine and feel the ambiances. So here the medical school in Ottoman medical school in Istanbul, in Liviano. So also hospital, we can give by this picture different means or ways to make people feeling the old atmosphere. So the music therapy used to mental diseases, the dentist, woman giving baby, and so on. In contemporary heritage architecture, we have also the building as it is for a lot of years, and also in new use here, dancers, contemporary dancers, with Mongolian young girls that are visiting the buildings, and the visitors will see another ambience, another show ambience for special kind of people. Also, we can, in contemporary heritage architecture, we see also the different means to conserve the old atmospheres for heating, lighting, and so on. Models are also the actual way to preserve these characters. So we can see in these examples for very big and nice houses in Tunisia, the way they use models, human models, to give an idea, a clear idea, and to get the right or the chance to feel these heritage atmospheres. In old buildings, in some places of the world, we have the introductions of new design that gives us the lack to feel on another very, very contemporary ambiances, especially in museum. We see here examples of museum in Italy, these ones in Scotland. Here is an old church converted to a marine museum, and here is soap factory in Lebanon. So we have the introduction of very, very contemporary elements, design elements that give us another kind of smells, touching, and so another kinds of atmospheres, contemporary, very contemporary atmospheres in very old buildings. Thank you for that.